Alright everybody, don't be alarmed, but I am finally making a coat. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know, my name is Marie and I love to sew and craft and knit and all things cozy, and occasionally I make videos about that. Welcome! Today is a very special day because I finally started making a wool coat that I've been thinking about for years, and I want to share this with you. I want to celebrate the overcoming of the fear and finally getting started on this coat. As I'm filming today, I have chosen a pattern, done the prep work, and even started sewing a little bit, so that's super exciting. And now I can look back and share my thoughts on the different steps and the different tools that were needed for the preparation work, things that I found very helpful, things that I think you could do without. So I want this video to be a bit of a reference for my future self when I make another coat, and maybe for you, if you are planning on making a coat, to kind of make all of these steps a little bit less scary, if that makes sense. Obviously, I'm just sharing my thoughts as a first-time coat maker. Feel free to share your opinions and your findings as well. And yeah, I think I've said all I wanted to say in the intro. Let's start talking about the pattern. Before I forget, there will be timestamps below, so feel free to skip ahead to the parts that you find interesting, and there will be an extensive list of resources in the description box, so have a look there. First of all, I looked online for some inspiration. That was easy, and very quickly I settled on like a bit oversized, not too fitted or tailored, something with raglan sleeves or dropped shoulder sleeves, nothing too fitted again, and like a big collar. That's what I knew. So for the pattern, I would love to be able to tell you, oh, I just looked online, found what I needed, and got on with my life. However, as it often goes with me, that's not how it went. As it usually goes for me, I had to overthink this for many weeks and then ended up going with my first option. So I went on a long search online. I found a few patterns that I really liked. I'll show you a few on the screen. So the reason why I didn't end up going with these patterns is a little bit about design, but mainly about the instructions. I wanted a pattern that would take me by the hand and help me with every step. I didn't want to have to fill in blanks, freestyle things that weren't clear. I wanted something that has been tried and trued by many people, and luckily I found a pattern that fit the style that I was looking for and was being loved by the community for its instructions. And I'm talking about the Traveler Coat by Bella Loves Patterns. They have a few coats by now, which is already a good sign for me. And when you look at the reviews about this pattern, most people are singing the praises of the instructions. Almost everybody I see posting about this coat is loving how it fits and how the end result looks, and how this pattern just took them by the hand and helped them along this whole process. One of the big reasons why I was overthinking it so much was my fabric. So the fabric that I have is beautiful. I love this color. I'll insert some video about it because it's very difficult to show you exactly the color of this fabric. It's a secondhand fabric. I bought it when I just started sewing 5 or 6 years ago, and yeah, it's been sitting in my stash forever. I think it's kind of like a mid-weight wool fabric, so it has some weight to it, but it's still very flowy, if that's drapey, that's the word. But a big problem is that I only have 2.5 meters of this. That's also a big reason why I hesitated so long on the Bella Loves Patterns coat, because that pattern calls for 3+ meters of fabric, and I didn't have that. So I knew from the start that I would have to make some design changes to be able to fit the coat in the fabric. I thought about making a cropped version of the coat, but then I thought, let's just try to make it as long as I can with the fabric that I have. I bought the pattern, had it printed on like big A0 sheets because it's a lot of pattern pieces. Even on A0 pages, it was 5, I think, big sheets. 3 for the main fabric, 2 for the lining. If you have to start sticking together A4 papers, I would have abandoned this whole project immediately, honestly. So let's quickly talk about the design details. It has a big collar, that's what I wanted. It doesn't have raglan sleeves, but it has drop shoulder sleeves. It has big pockets, very important. And then good instructions, as I said, very important. And just raving reviews. So I went in with a little bit more confidence than completely at the start. That's a plus. So the pattern comes, I don't think I said, comes in two lengths, for 1m60 and 1m70. I'm kind of in between, so I took the 1m60. I decided on a size 12, a straight size 12, no modifications in terms of sizing. And then I had a look at the pattern instructions. When I looked in the pattern instructions, I saw that there's a lot of notions and tools that it asks for that I didn't have. For example, correct interfacing, stay tape, wood clapper, a tailor's ham, things like that. So it kind of scared me, and I contacted a local fabric shop. I will link it below. And they were super friendly and helped me choose the right interfacing and stay tape and things like that. I could also have the pattern printed there on A0 pages. Lifesaver. All of that made it a little bit easier. And then I guess the first official day that I started making it was in October. I had a crafternoon with some of my friends and I started puzzling the heck out of this fabric. So I took all of the pattern pieces and just puzzled it as closely as possible to be able to fit as much of it in this fabric and to have the coat as long as possible. The puzzling in itself took so freaking long. But I'm glad I took my time for it because I think it made me able to optimize the fabric as well as I could. In the end, after all the puzzling, I couldn't fit the belt in the fabric and I had to shorten the full length by 25 centimeters or 25.5 centimeters. So it's significantly shorter than the full length, but I'm still able to make like a decent sized or length coat from it. So technically I had everything that I needed to start the prep work. I had cut out my fabric pieces, I had my interfacing and stay tape and all of these things. I didn't have all the tools yet, we'll come back to that later, but I still put it off a little bit because I noticed that I had done already something wrong, and that's basically on the first step. The pattern calls for block fusing the interfacing, which is kind of a technique where you interface your fabric before you cut out the fabric pieces, and this way there's less chance of like having fabric that moves or having your interface not match the fabric pieces if you cut them out separately. But because I had such trouble puzzling all of my pattern pieces in my fabric, I wasn't able to do the block fusing how the pattern is asking you to do it. So already I had to freestyle and I didn't like that. So when I found enough courage to keep going and enough time to keep going, I came up with a system that I think is kind of similar to block fusing in the idea. So let me try to get this as clear as possible. So the first way I tried to interface, and spoiler, that didn't work, was to have the interfacing uncut on my ironing board with the sticky side up, or the glue side up. On top of that, my cutout fabric pieces with the wrong side down, so the right side up. On top of that, a press cloth or just like a piece of lightweight cotton, dampen that cloth a bit, and then ironing it according to the instructions of the interfacing. However, because of all these layers, the interfacing didn't get hot enough and that didn't work, so it didn't stick to the fabric. So basically, I just had to flip it around. I had to have the interfacing higher up to the heat of my iron. Makes complete sense to me when I think about it in hindsight. So to do that, I first wrapped my ironing board in baking paper so no interfacing could stick to my ironing board. On top of the baking paper, I put my fabric pieces with the right side down. On top of that, I put the interfacing with the sticky side down, and then the press cloth, and then I just ironed it. And that was a way that worked much better. it's coming loose. This worked really well. There's no glue on the baking sheet. Hopefully I can just reuse these 3 baking sheets for the whole thing. So let's keep doing it this way. Afterwards, I just cut off the excess interfacing and it kind of worked pretty well. I don't know if this makes any sense, but to me, it was a good way of fixing my block fusing problem. And just so you know, in total, it took about 3.5 hours to do all of the interfacing. So maybe you think, now that I have all of my pattern pieces interfaced and ready to go, I will be fully in the groove and like keep going on this project. Well, you would be wrong. By now, it was almost Christmas. I wanted to make some Christmas gifts for people. You will see the video about that somewhere here or linked below. So again, the code moved to the side until I had a few days during the Christmas holidays where I could work on it without being interrupted, without having to go to work. And that's the moment where I got a lot of progress in. I'm so happy I had a little bit of time to just really get stuck into this project. Still doing prep work at this point. First, I did the stay tape application and then the thread tacking. So the stay tape makes sense to me. It kind of reinforces some parts of the fabric so it doesn't stretch out or so it's a bit more stiff. That was very easy, very comprehensive in the pattern instructions as well. Then came the thread tacking. You do that by hand. You take a thread and then you thread those reference points onto your fabric. Found it a little bit more difficult. I don't know if I looked over it or if I'm missing some basic information in my sewing skills. I didn't find it very easy to transfer the lines from your pattern paper onto your fabric so that you can then follow those lines to thread basting stitches. I tried carbon tracing with one of those sheets of carbon paper and then a little wheel with teeth to trace on the fabric. That didn't work. I think my fabric is too thick for that. In the end, I really just took my pattern pieces, laid them on top of my fabric pieces, and then kind of like folded back, kind of pin it all away, and then connect the pins with chalk. I hope you can see it in the video a little bit. But yeah, that was a little bit more difficult. And in the end, I spent about 3 hours for the stay tape and the tacking of the basting thread. The reality of how slow this project was going was really hitting me. Yeah, I was just trying to chip along, keep going, and forget about the fact that I would also still have to do a lining afterwards. I'm still in denial about that. Okay, so now that I've done all of the prep work, let's talk about the things that I would do differently next time. First of all, shocking, I would buy more fabric. It's really a pain to have to puzzle so much and knowing at the start that you won't be able to make the coat that you want to make. I have thought so many times, if only I had 1/2 meter more. So next time I will buy definitely enough fabric, maybe even a little bit more, so I also have a big enough offcut for when I press the seams. Next, I need to get better marking devices, like better chalk or something like that. Now I often use a pencil or like a water erasable pen, but for this fabric I really missed having a good piece of chalk to mark with. So that's something I would want differently next time. Also, I would want to actually do block fusing. I couldn't do that this time, but I want to try it, and then maybe I can compare it to the system that I had and see which one I like more. But I do want to try it. Then let's talk about the things that did work for me. First of all, printing this pattern on A0 pages was a must, and if I sew a coat again, I will definitely do that again. Another thing that worked really well was asking for expertise in the fabric shop, not to get lost in the rabbit hole of the internet, but just go to the people that know more about it than myself. In terms of instructions, reading all the steps very carefully. It also helps me break up the steps a little bit to make them a little bit less overwhelming. You know, you have 57 pages of instructions. It's nice if you can break it up a little bit. Something I found very helpful is to carve out some more time to be able to batch prep work some of the steps. I didn't do it in the beginning, and then I had a hard time getting momentum going. But once I carved out some time to do lots of the prep work at once while watching a nice movie or something like that, it motivated me to keep going. And now, as I'm in the sewing stages of the project, it's much easier to pick it up and to keep going whenever I have a little bit of time. Another thing I do to keep motivated, when I'm done for the day, I read the next step already, so that when I'm thinking about sewing, I kind of already know what's coming. That way it's becoming a bit more concrete, and it's again a little bit less scary once I start sewing. If you have made it this far, congratulations on making it to the end of the prep stages of making a coat. I hope it was interesting to see the process and to see what worked and didn't work. Do chime in if you have thoughts, if you have opinions. Next video will be all about sewing. As I said, I have just started sewing and it's really nice to see it take shape. I definitely have found a little bit more momentum now, and so far it's going pretty well, but I'm knocking on wood. Alright, I will wrap it up so I can go sew. Thank you for watching all the way until the end. I hope wherever you are, you had a nice start of the year. Here it's winter, so I'm trying to still stay in the quiet, slow pace of things and not getting swept up in any crazy resolutions, except for maybe continuing on working on this coat. I cannot wait to see you in the next video all about sewing this coat, so maybe I'll see you there. You can subscribe if you want to know when this video is out. And yeah, thank you for watching. See you next time. Goodbye!